I'd like to call the special meeting of Emmaus Borough Council to order. Please rise. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The purpose of this meeting this evening is to have a presentation that the borough manager put together and for council to have a discussion and possible vote on the purchase of property at 10 East Main, 10 East Minor Street, and 33 East Minor Street and 151 East Minor Street. After having the presentation, we're going to open it up to personal appeals. Any member of the public can speak. You'll be limited to 5 minutes. The topic tonight is only the Rodale properties, what is on the agenda for this evening. Having said that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Pepe, and you can start our presentation.
Okay, we have to.
Lights off.
Yeah, if you can
Please
put
hear.
the. All right, if it's okay with everybody, I'm going to sit down so I can speak into the microphone so we can catch it on the recording.
Can everybody hear Shane?
Are we okay in the back?
Okay.
Okay. So, we're here to talk about exploring the possible purchase of 33 East Minor Street and give you the information from the results of different work that we've done looking at this. So what we're really discussing is exactly that, the possible purchase of 33 East Minor in the amount of $2.95 million. It would also include the parking lot located at 10 East Minor, as well as the house next door, which is 151 East Minor. The purchase would be the purpose, it'd be for the purposes of ultimately relocating all of our governmental operations to a central location adjacent to the public works facilities, which are located on Klein's Lane. So the flow of the presentation, our job, you'll be hearing from myself, you'll also be hearing from both our architects and our appraiser. So our job is to present the information to you in as objective as possible and give you the facts based on the research that we've conducted, based on the assessments that they've conducted, and to give you the opportunity to make an educated opinion. We're going to have a civil conversation. We're not going to argue. My job is to give you the information. Your job is to take that information and make as an informed decision as possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the background, the current building conditions, and the appraisals. We'll talk about the disadvantages and risks of purchasing the buildings. We'll also talk about the advantages and pros of purchasing the buildings. We'll obviously talk about how would we pay to do this if you were to do it. We'll talk about plans and phases. We're going to discuss briefly how the departments feel, how it might affect delivery of services and concerns with delivery of services, what the buildings look like. We have some photographs for you so you can actually see what the buildings look like. And then what the next steps are, whether council votes yes or no. There's obviously next steps involved. So, we're talking about 3 parcels. 33 East Main is the main building. That's the building that's 58,000 square feet. Or I'm sorry, East Minor, not Main. I keep saying Minor, I apologize. 10 East Minor is the parking lot across the road. Again, you'll see the pin on it. And then 151 East Minor would be the stone house that is on the other side of the larger building. So the background. We've been formulating a plan for months, actually a couple years now, as to how to address the issues within our own buildings. And over the summer, we had been discussing the plan with this building. And we've been budgeting a little bit of money at a time to address the different issues. And we've been addressing some of the issues in the police station, in Central Station. We've also been talking about the inefficiencies and how to improve the efficiencies, the disconnect between the buildings, how to improve the operations, how do we improve the buildings. And during those discussions, we looked and said, the Rodale building is actually for sale. And that came out around the end of August. So what ended up happening was we essentially decided, hey, let's at least take a look at it. Let's at least do some due diligence, take a look at the possibility of investigating whether or not that may or may not be a good fit for our needs, and compare that to what our needs are in these buildings. And look at the costs, look at the feasibility, look at whether or not we might want to make a possible move. So that's exactly what we did. We've toured the building. Council members have had an opportunity on 2 different occasions to tour the building. Department managers have had that same opportunity. We hired Spillman Farmer Architects to conduct a feasibility study. You'll hear from them tonight. They also presented to council several months ago as to the conditions of the building. We also hired Ray Geiger, who's been doing appraisals for us since, probably the 80s, to do appraisals for us, to see what our buildings are worth, to see what those buildings are worth, and to basically get the information that we need to make an educated opinion, an educated decision, rather than just doing guesswork. We then decided to hire Cindy Feinberg and Feinberg Real Estate Associates to possibly broker a real estate deal and to negotiate the price and conditions of a sale with Rodale and the possible sales. So what we did then was we created a non-binding agreement of what the conditions of the sale would look like if council were to vote in favor of purchasing the buildings. Council members were kept aware of the entire process. They understood, they were not kept out of the loop at all. So we did educate them, we did tell them what we were doing. However, they in no way voted for anything. So tonight's vote is based on all the information that you would get from myself, from our architects, from our appraisers, and obviously from public feedback. So this meeting is designed for you to receive all the necessary information in one collective meeting, in one collective presentation, regarding making the decision on the building, as well as for the public to receive that same information. The meeting is also designed to be an active conversation with both council members and members of the public, as this is a very important decision. This is not a decision that any of us should take lightly. Why do you need to make a decision so soon? As we've talked, Rodale has required that a decision was made within 30 days from the date of which they gave us a tentative price. I mean, obviously they have more than enough reasons why they would do that. The timeline started, or the clock started ticking on December 19th. So the current buildings and conditions. We're going to look at Borough Hall, Central Station, our police station, our weight room. And then what we'll do is we'll move into the other buildings, because we have an assessment on 33 East Minor, a very detailed assessment, and our architects will speak to that. So Borough Hall. Borough Hall was built in 1938. The total square footage of Borough Hall is 12,647 square feet. Costs that we know that are needed right now with the building. We just spent $18,000 on a new roof. That would be the roof above us. We're estimating another $12,000 for the lower roof above the garage. That's going to be needed in the very near future. We have cost proposals for new windows that range from $46,000 to $60,000. All you need to do is stand near them and you'll know why we need new windows. For HVAC improvements, if you go through this building, you know there's a space heater in every office. You also know that the furnace downstairs in the basement is built for a residential home, not for a commercial building. You know that HVAC for this room is controlled separately than the rest of the building. To do HVAC work, it's between $65,000 for the main floors, and then another $80,000 to do to make improvements, just improving it, and making it all one system and doing the basement. So we're looking at about $145,000 for a complete overhaul of HVAC in this building. Our current remodeling project, we have $40,000 to do the remodeling project the council has already approved. Obviously, we put that on hold until council makes a decision as to what we're going to do with this building and whether or not we're going to stay here or move to 33 East Minor. That includes eliminating the fuse boxes and actually putting in modern day breaker boxes. So we're not popping the fuse box every time we turn the space heater on. It includes redoing the jail cell and turning that into a functional space, upgrading some electrical, and doing the required ADA improvements that comes along with any remodeling project in a commercial building as required by law. It also includes $22,000 for widening our doors and doing the security system with that, as well as $20,000 for cameras and a security system. Basement improvements to make that at least functional downstairs is about $60,000, and that's with our guys doing the work. It's more like $100,000 if we're contracting that work out. The lighting retrofits, $16,000 for the main floor, $16,000 for the basement, and then obviously there's some outside work that needs to be done. So the total cost, the estimated future cost in today's money is $382,000 to $396,000 on this building to do that work. The police station, built in 2006, it's a new building. Total square footage with the garages and satellite ports is 9,680 square feet. Some of the costs that are needed per the request of the department, they need to address storage. We have $30,000 that we're looking at to address the evidence room storage. The evidence room HVAC is inadequate, we know that. We've actually put that in this year's budget. It's $10,000. Their security system is now out of date, so they need to replace that. That's $12,000. Their security camera replacements are $15,000. They are also out of date. The interview room number 1 needs to be re-insulated. We had some issues in a court case where they were hearing echoes in our interview rooms. Not that it costs us anything in terms of the cases, but we need to address that. So we need to insulate each of those rooms. It's a special installation to address the sound in the room. So it's about $2,000. The records file room expansion, we're out of room. It's about $10,000 to expand that. The parking garage is full, obviously. Some police vehicles are being parked in the employee lots. Now, to address storage, to address expansion, if you were to ever to go in that direction, and we're not saying that it's going to be in the next year, 2 years, or even 5 years, but you're looking at least $600,000 to $1 million to build up or out. That could be 15 years, that could be 20 years. I mean, that's not something that we're really concentrating on looking at right now. But at some point in time, you're going to need to address that. We just took one of the interview rooms and converted it into the administrative sergeant's office due to the lack of space. We have 5 people sharing the same office. So we had converted one of our interview rooms over to his office. So total estimated cost for improvements in the police station are anywhere, for the normal stuff, it's about $74,000. Up to, if you were to obviously expand the building, it's over $1 million. Central Station was built in 1980. Total square footage, including both sets of garages, is 12,647 square feet. We need to replace the ambulance roof. That's $11,000. We need to address storage in the ambulance bay, so that way we can get some of the medicine and files out of the bays and into a locked room. That's about $2,500. Replace some of their heating. It was $1,900. The HVAC in the crew room in the fire side was $2,000. Some of the things that the departments have actually asked for improvements in the building over the last year or two. The fire department side, the front ramp is obviously deteriorating. You know that number to replace all of that cement is about $34,000. The rear driveway is about $9,000. There's obviously trees around the building that need to be addressed and replaced. That's about $4,000. And the curbing at the front of the building is about $10,000. That curbing obviously is because we've hit it with different trucks. We need to separate the reporting area from the crew room and the ambulance. That's going to be at least $3,000. And there are some rear driveway repairs and repaving. It's another $5,000 in addition. So it's about $105,000 in repairs and improvements at Central Station that we would be looking at. The weight room, it's 1,000 square feet. Probably within the next 5 years, it's going to need a new roof. You can stretch that out until the roof is falling apart. But even so, you're going to need to replace that roof at some point. You're going to need to replace the heating. There is plumbing in that building, so that furnace is going to need to be replaced probably in the next 5 to 7 years. It's a small residential heater, so we're looking at like $5,000 there. And then there's some general upgrades that building needs, so you're looking at about another $5,000. So you're looking at about $27,000 if you're going to address the needs in that building. 33 East Minor Street. This is the Rodale building. The last section was built in 1992. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to Russ and Aaron from Spillman Farmer Architects to discuss with you what their findings were from their feasibility study. What I'll do is I'll move it to the next slide that kind of incorporates all of the improvements that they feel would need to be made. So I'll turn it over to you. Yeah, I'll give you the mic so that way they can hear you.
Just give them all stands.
Slide those. We have enough table, right?
Nate, is the second one under there?
Saying Nate's name.
I'm Russ McCalla with Spillman Farm Architects. We were hired by the borough to look at a feasibility study. So the first place we obviously started off was touring the building. We did tour it originally with council members and their staff. And then we came back and went through the building a little more eye to what some of the issues were. But for the most part, the building's in good condition. We brought our MPE engineer, Lehigh Valley Engineers, out to take a look at the mechanical, the plumbing, and the electrical systems as well. The exterior envelope is in good shape. The roof, the walls, the doors and the windows, the exterior windows. There's an adequate room around the site for additional parking if needed, or to put additions on if required, especially for the fire apparatus bays, the police bays, and the ambulance bays. That's an important ingredient. There's adequate parking for the staff and visitors. The main issues we see are the existing toilet rooms don't meet ADA. They're very tight, so those would take a major renovation to update the existing toilet facilities. Some of the HVAC systems would have to also be updated. They're getting outdated. And the fire alarm system should be updated as well throughout the whole building to bring it up to code. So we basically have those general analysis, and then we went into providing different scenarios that we showed to council with regard to how the different departments would work in different locations within this building. Now, the building is 58,000 square feet, and the borough doesn't need that much room. Even when you take the charter school out of it, there's still adequate room to put all the borough's facilities in there. So we took the square footages that Shane talked about and added 10% onto that so that we made sure there was enough room for expansion. And there's still additional space that could be used for leasing to other parties afterwards. The biggest issue with regard to the overall planning for this was, how do you sort of separate the emergency vehicles from the everyday staff and visitors' vehicles? Again, figuring out where the fire truck apparatus bays had to be and the ambulance bays had to be versus just your general parking. So that played a big part on where we thought those pieces should be. And again, there hasn't been a consensus yet, because there's still a lot of groundwork to do with regard to talking to the fire department and the council to make those decisions. But I don't know if, Aaron, you want to talk a little bit about that design process?
Sure. We looked at, as Russ said, the current sizes of each of the programs. The building itself, the Rodeo building, is split into sort of almost a number of different buildings, so that lends itself to use for a couple of different programs, but it's also in a connected, consolidated site. I think Russ also alluded to, one of our biggest concerns was looking at traffic, how you'd access the site. And we found that it is possible. We proved in our layouts that it is feasible to fit the full program with room for expansion, and also some allowing the charter school to remain. I think the one thing to note is that what the current existing building lacks is the ability for vehicle bays. So that's the one thing on this site that we'd have to look at additionally for.
Yeah. The one advantage of the building is the majority of the building is all on one floor. There's only one section of the middle section of the building that's a two-story building, but there is an elevator and there's adequate access to that second floor. But other than that, the rest of the building is all on one level, which is good for ADA accessibility from the parking lot and from the front. Is all at grade as well. It's really just the bathrooms that need ADA update. So with that, and after we looked at those schemes, we sort of developed some budget guideline numbers for the borough. And the first item we'll talk about is just basically the borough hall, that section, and updating, trying to reuse as much as we can with offices and doors without doing a lot of changes. Now, obviously, some finishes would have to be upgraded, but and we'd have to create a council room and a community room, and that price tag is $165,000. And then you also have the toilet room ADA component that also has to be updated. And again, the reason that number's high again is because we really have to sort of move walls and get rid of a lot of the elements that are in those existing bathrooms, and that ends up being a costly repair. The police station, again, that's a little bit more involved with what a police station is required to have in it. So that number includes a couple of bays, the Sally Port and a couple of police bays, the $400,000, and then again updating their bathrooms and locker rooms to meet the ADA requirements, around $300,000. Fire and ambulance construction, again, not a whole lot there with regard to what has to be done to the existing building, because most of their offices and storage spaces would be in the existing building, so the renovation cost from around $60,000 is fairly low. But then we have to add the apparatus bays to house the fire trucks and house the ambulances, and that's what the $930,000 is, and the $330,000 are. And then obviously, the toilet modifications for the ambulance and fire department is $150,000. And then I mentioned before that the HVAC, there are going to be some upgrades with that, and we have a target number of $650,000 for that. Adding an emergency generator to the building because of the nature of the building is going to be required. Again, that's a $100,000 price tag. And then updating the whole building's fire alarm system is $120,000.
The last 3 points are really to comply with current codes.
So the total price tag, again, ballpark number is a $3.4 million to do that renovation if you were to bid it out as for contract.
The other thing to note is, as you were told in your meeting with another member of Spillman Farmer, is that if we were to do the work in-house, it'd be less of a third of that. So you could knock off about 33% if we were to do almost all the work in-house. Obviously, there's some things you can't do in-house, but if you did the majority of it in-house, it'd be a third of that would come off. All right, so moving to the parking lot across the street, that's 33 East Minor Street. So there's a couple pictures of it. The parking lot adds about 35 additional spaces to the current 104 spaces that are at 33 East Minor. The only work that would need to be there is the typical seal and paint work that you need to do on driveways. 151 East Minor is the stone house, like I said, right beside 33 East Minor. To be very honest, I mean, this was not a house we were pursuing. They essentially told us they'd throw it in with the deal. So, you know, our idea would be to minimally invest in it, maybe paint it, maybe put a little bit of carpet in it, and we didn't have the appraisers do any appraisals on it. We didn't have the architects do any kind of study on it, because this was kind of a last minute part of the negotiations. So we really don't know what the other needs would be, but our plan would be that we really wouldn't invest heavily in this property unless obviously you would decide otherwise. So let's talk about the appraisals. The appraisals on 33 East Minor, as well as collectively what we might be able to sell our buildings for if we were to do that. So I'll now turn it over to Mr. Ray Geiger, who is our appraiser.
Good afternoon. My name is Ray Geiger. I've been appraising property in the Lehigh Valley for about 35 years, and I do a lot of office appraisals, and I do a lot of special purpose type properties. I've appraised literally hundreds of office buildings and hundreds of schools, churches, all kinds of different, as I say, limited purpose buildings, special purpose buildings. I was asked, as Shane said, I was asked to take a look at 33 Minor Street. It was on the market when I looked at it, what is that, about 6 weeks ago, or two months ago? About 2 months. About 2 months now. It was about 2 months ago. It was on the market for something in excess of $3 million. I don't quite remember the number as we sit here. I made a presentation to council in an executive session and discussed with them that I thought that the asking price was not unreasonable, but that I thought the actual value was somewhat lower, and that they should attempt to make a negotiation for something lower than the asking price, but bearing in mind that the asking price was not unreasonable. That, in round numbers, just to keep things simple, it's very close to 60,000 square feet, times 50 is $3 million. And that's a nice round number, quick and dirty way of looking at it. I'm going to pat myself on the back here because I think it was actually me that suggested that you not buy it unless you could also get the parking lot and the house. And I made that suggestion to council because the parking lot of 104 spaces that exists, in my view, is a little bit light for a typical office user, though it may well suit your municipal use, and that you should get some extra parking. And so the extra 30 or so spaces I saw as something that was really necessary. The house, and the reason I thought the house was important was because if you look at the mapping, it provides a future alternative way of getting off the site in another direction. Frankly, if it were me, Unless there's some historical value that I don't know about, I would tear the house down and create another driveway going out of the lot the other direction. In any event, I now understand, I learned it first when I saw it in the paper, the same as everybody else, that you had negotiated a price of something under $3 million for both properties. So I would say, job well done, and that this is certainly a reasonable acquisition price.
Thank you, Mr. Geiger. All right, so let's talk about the disadvantages and the advantages of doing this. I mean, obviously, there's both pros and cons. And our job, obviously, is to tell you what we found as disadvantages and advantages of considering this purchase. So, the first and foremost thing, I mean, obviously, a disadvantage is it's a change of location. It's a change, and most people don't like change. So, I mean, right out of the gate, without considering anything else, it's a change. So, but there are other serious disadvantages that you do need to consider. I mean, if you can get over the idea of change, there are some other things that you need to think about. The first thing is the railroad tracks. I mean, there are challenges with the railroad tracks. I mean, we've looked at, and I'll show you in a couple slides here. We looked at the call volume density of both the fire department and the ambulance, and we've also discussed with the police department regarding their call volume density and how they respond to calls, and how the railroad tracks will affect or would affect their response. Okay, so one of the concerns that we have is the fact that the railroad tracks are right there. Right now, where we're located, we can go over 4th Street, we can go under 10th Street, and we're relatively close to both. You're a little farther from both of those, and we have a train come through what seems to be every 15 minutes. I don't know the exact numbers, but that's something you need to consider. The other concern, and we've heard it from a few people, and obviously we've identified it as well. You're no longer near the downtown. The building is, it's less than a half a mile from here, but you're not right in the center of the downtown. So that's something that we've identified as a disadvantage to purchasing and moving to that location. It's not a serious disadvantage, but there are people that really like the idea of the government buildings being in or near the downtown area. There's obviously short-term costs involved. So anytime you say the word money, you have to associate that with bad. So we labeled the short-term cost as a disadvantage. The police station, I mean, there's no hiding it. You built it in 2006. It's a brand new building. So are we going to take a financial loss in the police station sale? Didn't we just buy this property? Didn't we just construct this building? There aren't that many issues with the police station. We did identify some, and we showed you. But as far as is that building falling apart? The answer is no. We know that, and we've explained before why if we were to do this, why we would want to consider moving the police as well, and that's because it's a 60,000 square foot building, and the idea of consolidating all of your operations into one building is something to consider, which we'll identify in the next slide. And obviously, if you lose the rental income, I mean, that's always a risk. It's not necessarily a disadvantage, because one of the advantages is right now there's rental income. But there's always a risk of what if you lose the rental income, what kind of impact would that have on you, and how long would it take for somebody to move into that spot. So that has to be something that we need to consider as a risk to the possible purchase. There's obviously advantages and pros. There's consolidation of costs, consolidation of operations, consolidation of manpower. That increases efficiency, which is one of our goals operationally as management, as employees, is to look at our efficiency in our operations. It's a long-term home. There's plenty of room to grow in the buildings. I mean, you could grow and grow and grow and still not fill out that entire building. And not that that's our goal to grow, but in the cases of, you know, we have an entire building without a closet, this isn't going to be an issue. You know, it can be a community building for everyone to do their business in one centralized location. You can pay all of your bills in one building. You can do all of your business with the government in one building. That's got to be appetizing. You know, and it's got limitless potential. I mean, you can design community rooms, rental rooms. There are different things that you could ultimately design into that building. There's plenty of parking. You're not competing for parking for a public meeting like you were tonight. There's an elimination of cramming too many employees into a single office or having patient report writing in the same room as the crew room, which is what we face now in Central Station. We'd also have improved building security because of the way the building's designed. Right now, this building's not, you know, this building in particular, and Central Station, they're not really designed for that. I mean, you actually have to stand outside and push a button to get into Central Station now. That's our security over there. So if you're a member of the public, you can stand in the rain until somebody answers the door, because you know, it's a violation of HIPAA. It's a violation of all sorts of things if you just walk through an ambulance station freely. So it can address building security. Obviously, better protection of classified information, including the HIPAA stuff, other confidential information, where you'd be able to separate it out, lock rooms, have separate rooms for things. You're able to expand. You can address some of your storage problems to be in compliance with updated retention laws. And the consolidation of the buildings means cost savings in utilities, maintenance costs, and other costs that overlap between having 3 or 4 different buildings. And, I mean, obviously, it's 50,000 square feet. That's 25,771 square feet, larger than all 4 of our buildings combined with the garages. Okay? So those are the advantages that we've identified. Fundamental questions, obviously, what's the rush? And we answered that, but we'll talk about it a little bit again. Why would we want to leave our current buildings? What's this going to cost? How are we going to afford this without affecting taxpayer rates? How do the departments feel about this? And will this affect the delivery of services? Those are some fundamental questions that we need to be able to answer. What's the rush? So, first of all, we've been exploring this since August. You're aware of that. It was late summer when we started discussing this. We spent a month conducting studies, including a feasibility study and appraisals. Once council felt it was worthwhile to investigate it further, that's when we hired Feinberg Real Estate to begin non-binding negotiations. Everything that we have right now is non-binding. Rodale responded with the idea that since they're they're a community-oriented business, they've gone out on a limb and stopped all negotiations with any other possible suitor until we had made our decision here. But with that came, it came a provision from them that said once we agreed on a possible price with them, we have 30 days to decide. That's why we're here tonight. That's why we would have liked 180 days. We would have liked longer, but they gave us 30 days, and I understand why. They may be a community organization, but they're also a business. They're also somebody trying to sell a piece of real estate. They need to meet their goals too. And I'm sure the cash flow is something that they're also looking at. So that's why we were given the 30 days. This wasn't something that we decided on. It was a provision that they gave us. So on December 19th, they started the agreement. We signed it on around December 22nd, 23rd, but the clock started ticking on the 19th. We obviously had the holidays. We had Christmas right away. We had the New Year, so we scheduled this meeting as quickly as we could. And we put out, once we had all the information around and ready, we put out press releases. We put them out to 4 different newspapers. And and all of the media outlets that we felt were relevant to the area. So why leave our current buildings? It comes down to simply you need to answer the question, which one is more practical? Update the current buildings that we have, and continue operating as we are, or relocate to a new building. Why would you leave the current buildings? You know, there's two big reasons. One is centralization of operations, which is more efficiency, having more of a handle on operations, and it's a government center for the public. Consolidations of costs. It's one heating system, one electric system, one sewer, one water system, one technological center, one everything. You're able to do all of your operations under one roof. And it's a more modern building than most of our buildings. I mean, obviously the police station is excluded from that because that's more modern than any of our buildings, but it doesn't have an oven tube and it doesn't have fuse boxes. So it's a modern building compared to the other three buildings that we're talking about. So the purchase cost. The asking price was $3.49 million. The appraised value was, as Mr. Geiger said, you know, the appraised value was around $3.5 million, 3.49. The agreed upon price between the borough and Rodale would be $2.95 million. The cost to build a building that size brand new would be about $17.4 to $34 million, as per the discussion that we had with our appraiser several months ago. In addition to the main building, the purchase also includes 151 East Minor and the parking lot across the street. Collectively, the value on those two pieces of property is at least around $160,000. So, how do we, you know, what are the rates? What would we have to do? You would take out a mortgage or a bond. 2% bond for 25 years on $3 million. It's about $152,000 a year, a little bit more. If you take out a conventional commercial mortgage, you know, we only receive. I mean, we didn't go out and get bids or anything, but we asked one or two banks. For a 25-year note, if it was 10-year fixed at 3.29%, you'd be looking at about $177,000 a year. And if you did a 25-year note with 5-year fixed interest rate, it'd be about 2.45%. So that's about $162,000 a year that you would have to pay for the building. The construction cost, as we previously discussed, it'd be $3.4 million with the contractor doing all the work. It'd be about $2.5 if our employees would be doing the work. And the nice thing about our employees is that we have the skilled carpenters, the electricians, the plumbers, and we have the guys that can do the cement work, the brick work. But it's going to take time. You know, they're not going to be able to do it in the same time period that a contractor could do it. But you're looking at almost $1 million difference between the two. So how do you pay for that? You know, you see what it's going to cost, but how do you pay? I mean, we wouldn't be even discussing this if there wasn't some way to pay for it. So the rental income on the building over the next 3 years is between $165,000 and $175,000. That pays for the mortgage or the bonds. And if it doesn't pay for it completely, you're within $3,000 of paying for it completely. There's also a couple extensions options on the current renter's lease contract. So we could also, obviously, we could explore extending that with them. And there's potential for additional rental income depending on the final plans of the building. The architects had shown us a couple different possible plans. Obviously, there's nothing final anywhere, but we would be looking at, even if we moved all of our operations over there, there'd be anywhere from 7,600 square feet to about 13,000 square feet of what could be rentable space. Based on market value of renting commercial property, it'd be between $91,000 and $199,000 a year, depending obviously on price and on the amount of square footage. And that's over and above what the current leases are. There's also possible revenue from 151 East Minor, depending on what you would want to do with that. I mean, Mr. Geiger actually made a pretty good suggestion about, you know, what his idea was, possibly putting a driveway that way. But if you wanted to make revenue off of that building, you could do that as well. Excuse me. Rental income would be between $12,000 and $15,000 a year, depending on what the agreed upon rent would be. Or you could sell it. You know, right now, I mean, we don't know for sure because we didn't get the appraisal, but we're thinking it's around $139,000. The other way that you pay for it is through property sales. I mean, if we move out of Town Hall, we would sell Town Hall. If we move out of the police station, we would sell the police station. If we move out of Central Station, we sell Central Station. If we move the stuff out of the weight room, we sell the weight room. And the parking lots that are right around Town Hall and the police station as well. We're told that the estimated values of those buildings are between 1.2 and 1.8 million collectively. And that's in today's market. We have other properties to consider as well, including but not limited to the property at the South 2nd Street Reservoir and 18 acres on South 2nd Street, among others. We own, and I apologize, that's a typo, we own 43 parcels in the borough. Most of them are needed, but some are not. I mean, we've identified properties that we probably hadn't known were ours as a borough for 30 years. I mean, one of them is 18 acres, it's not even inside the borough. If there's no need for it, if there's no reason to have it, and the deed's clean, why not consider selling it and making it taxable property? So those are other areas to explore. The other thing that we would do is we'd piece the project together. We're not looking at moving everything tomorrow. That's not, you know, it's not a mad dash. You know, we would want to make sure that we're properly planning. We would want to make sure that we're not in a hurry to move everything. I mean, there's no need to be in a hurry to move everything. You know, stretch your resources, make the project affordable, move one department at a time, sell a building, and use those funds towards the next phase of the project. There's also obviously other funding sources. I mean, there's capital loan programs, which I wouldn't suggest, but they're available. There's RCAP money. There's the Sustainable Energy Bond Program and the Sustainable Energy Fund. They address things like upgraded HVAC, upgraded windows, roofing, boilers, bathrooms. Those types of grants address all of those things. So those are possibilities. CDBG grants are also a possibility. I mean, there's obviously a drawback of that, and that is currently we use CDBG money to do our curb cuts, and that's probably what we would still want to do. But I want to throw that out there. That's something that you could apply for CDBG money for building, for borough-wide building, because it's for borough-wide use. There's also the ARRA federal grants to help with construction for fire departments and ambulances stations. There's also the USDA rural development grants for government buildings, and you know, there's other possible grants out there. The other thing that we would look at doing is retiring old debt and using that to pay off the building. That way, you're not spending 25 years paying on this thing, but more like 10 years. That would be the idea. That would be the plan. But you'd have to stick to the plan, and that's the key to that. Is, you know, if we have a plan, stick to the plan. Don't deviate from it. So if you stuck to the plan, you had the following debt expiring. 2017, the police station's fully paid off. You have, and these costs that you see here, make sure you understand that that's how much we have to pay per year, not total. So your fire department pumper is $6,300, and actually we pay that off this year. Your police department or your police station is $5,500 a year. We get done with that in 2017. Your fire department truck, paid off, it's a crazy date, it's about $7,000 a year, it's paid off in 2026. And the big one, which is the 2010 bond, that's $512,000 a year, and that gets paid off on 8/15 of '21. So just with the bond itself, let's go in that direction. You can pay the loan off after 2021. You can spend the next 5 years and pay the rest of the loan off, or the next 4 years and pay the rest of the loan off, depending on what the leftover principal is. And that's a lot of money to quickly pay off the rest of that debt and be done with it. Don't take that money and roll out another loan or get crazy with it. Pay off. You would pay off the rest of the mortgage for this building. So essentially, if you did that, the building would be paid off by 2025, 2026 at the latest, if you stuck to that plan. So, that would be the plan to pay it off. So with the plan that we have, will it affect taxpayer rates? And that's what everybody out in the audience is asking. I'm sure that's I know that's what you're asking, because that's what I would be asking. Not if you stick to the plan. I mean, the idea is you buy it, the rental income pays for the mortgage, selling the buildings pays for the construction. You apply for grants in the meantime, you do most of the work yourself, you do it over a period of time rather than all at once. You can stretch your resources, you can stretch your money, and do it the smart way. I mean, it's kind of like remodeling your house. You can't do your kitchen, living room, and bathroom at the same time unless you won the lottery or got a really big bonus. It's one part a year. I mean, that's how most of us would do that. Is maybe this year we can do the kitchen, maybe next year we can do the living room. It's kind of the same concept. Is slow it down, stretch it out, and do it as you have the funds. And if that means it takes 10 years, it takes 10 years. After the building's paid off, the building actually has the potential of generating money for the borough because of the rental revenue. So the plan is, move slow. It can be a 5 to 10 year plan to ease the cost. You pay the mortgage with the rental income, just as I said, and you complete the bulk of the work in-house. Now, what you're looking at is proposed phases. Now, this hasn't even been discussed. None of them are final, so don't write it down and take it to heart that this is what we're doing. All right, but I wanted to throw it out there that we would do something that looks something like this. Phase it out. You want to move, if you were to do this, you would move Borough Hall by a certain date. You'd sell Borough Hall within a year after that. And then you'd move the next section, and then you'd sell that. You'd sell that building. And then you'd move the next one and you'd sell that building. I'm not saying these are the dates, I'm not saying that's the order. Obviously that's something that if you were to purchase the building, you would need to come together with a plan. So within each phase though, it would include the construction piece for the next phase, obviously. So how do the department feel? How do the departments feel? I mean, everybody has an opinion. Sure, if you go ask any employee, they have a different opinion. We've discussed with the department managers, and that's as far as we've gone. They've stated their support for the project. They've toured the building. They have concerns. The biggest concern that's been raised is the railroad track. Navigating the railroad tracks with the fire truck is a concern. It's not as much of a concern for the ambulance, but it's still a concern. For the police department, it's not nearly as much of a concern as the other two. But for those two, it is a concern. So, they have expressed that the railroad tracks are a concern, and you need to consider that. The overall belief, though, from each of the managers is that centralizing the operations would make all operations more efficient. And town hall staff, they'd move tomorrow if you let them. Delivery of service issues, we need to look at that. So, we've identified the railroad tracks at Klein's Lane. There's no getting around that. They're there. There's nothing positive about them being there other than if somebody wants to drop something off to us via rail freight. I mean, other than that, it's an issue for us. We do have ways around them. I mean, obviously, you can come up 4th Street. There could possibly be future improvements at the railroad crossings. We're not suggesting that's going to happen. We're not suggesting if it does happen, it's going to be any time in the near future. So, you need to just understand that is going to be a concern. The railroad tracks for the police are not a concern because they're on patrol the majority of the time. It's estimated that less than 25% of their calls come when an officer is actually in the station. They're actually on roving patrol for 75% of the calls. So it's not as much of a concern for the police as it would be for fire in particular. Obviously moving Central Station is not a major concern, but there are the disadvantages that you need to consider. So a couple of things that we did was, we said, okay, what do we have to back us up in terms of where the calls are for the departments, where, how can we prove whether or not the calls for ambulance and fire are concerned as far as the railroad tracks. So we had done some GIS work with our interns, who were fantastic, and looked at both departments in terms of call volume. We didn't do it with the police. I mean, that's 7,800 calls a year. They'd be here for months and months and months doing a volume analysis on the police. But it is important. I'm not sure how clear it comes up, but so this is the ambulance, and these are the calls just between January and September. And what we need to pay attention to is where the railroad tracks are, okay? And the railroad tracks go through, they essentially go through here, all right? Broad Street is right here, all right? And their call volume, their heaviest call volume, believe it or not, is on Broad Street. But you'll see it's centralized between, on both sides of the tracks. So, are there concerns that the railroad tracks are located there and the ambulance can't get to a call? No matter what, they're coming this way as far as the bulk of their call volume. They're coming up this way. So whether they come up Main Street or Minor Street, I'm not sure is going to affect the delivery time. I can't say one way or the other, but I do know that the bulk of their calls would be coming back up this way. This is their mutual aid calls outside of the borough. Obviously, railroad tracks aren't going to affect, I mean, they could potentially, but there's no real concentration as far as how to determine if the railroad tracks would affect ambulance calls outside the borough. But they do a lot of mutual aid calls outside the borough. So we looked at the fire call density as well. We did a January to July density assessment just to kind of look at where they answer the most to. I mean, obviously, any house at any time can get a 911 call. We understand that, we get that, but there are locations where they spend an awful lot of time at compared to others. And not that we really want you to, look at addresses, but it is worth noting that, again, the railroad tracks come through here. You see a concentrated amount on Broad Street, which are already on this side of the railroad tracks, but there are also concentrated amounts, obviously, at Ridge Manor, which you would expect. Where you see that type of housing, you're going to see more 911 calls in terms of both fire, ambulance, and even police assist. So, the assessment on fire, from what I can gather, is their highest density calls, over 50% of them, were actually on this side of the railroad tracks. But on the other side, 50% of them, or a little less than 50%, are on the other side of the railroad tracks. So at least half the time, or close to half the time, they're going to be crossing over or under the railroad tracks somehow, some way. Okay, we've talked about advantages, we've talked about disadvantages, we've looked at the railroad tracks, the call assessments. Let's look at what the building looks like. So this is what the inside of 33 East Minor looks like. And I'm hoping that they come out pretty clear. I tried to put 4 pictures on one slide. So the upper left is the main entrance to the building. It's right smack, almost right smack in the middle of the building. The upper right, I mean, you see their carpet cleaner there, but that's essentially the lobby to the building. To the left, you see the elevator and the hallway. To the bottom right is a photograph of one of the bathrooms. In this slide, the upper left is what used to be Rodale's library. The upper right is